I apologize if you can hear the AC unit in the background, but it's really hot in here. And I also apologize in advance for clearing my throat because I'm getting over a sinus infection. I also work in a call center, so my throat is a little sore. But here's chapter 2 for you, Daddy's or Mama's Fault. Early on in his marriage, Daddy trudged through each day under a great deal of stress. Him and Mama trying to fit in as a couple, the two of them trying to blend in, the rejection from his parents, the hard financial times, it all weighed heavy on him. Talking with him for the writing of this book, he commented that Mama was aggressive, trying to establish her position within his family. She didn't get anywhere with that, he assured me. He felt that perhaps his family may have softened to accept his marriage had patience been applied, whatever that meant. He didn't go into details about particular situations. Reminiscing made him uncomfortable and angry. I felt like a stranger to him, like a passerby on the street who didn't even know his name. He was fired from his jobs because of his black wife. He had certain privileges revoked once superiors found out about his interracial marriage. When children began entering the picture, things were even more difficult. Daddy had a lot of mouths to feed on a small salary that seemed to keep getting smaller. Since he wasn't a verbally expressive man, his inward frustration poured out in a negative, hostile manner. He was physically abusive towards me and several of my siblings. He seemed to take his anger out on me the moment I came forth from the womb. I saw him fight Mama often. I grew up in a brutal atmosphere where a man overpowered a woman regularly. I didn't know what brought about arguments between them or if Daddy was seeking to obtain his manhood or defend it. I only knew I feared him every moment of my young life. Daddy wasn't a fair man. He gave no advance warning of an altercation, and he didn't care that he was bigger and stronger. He just hit and yelled and hit. I hardly ever saw the violence coming. It was sudden, like a mighty gust of wind. I recall one particular night that I observed him from the dining room with my older brother and sister. Daddy and Mama had been arguing. Suddenly, she landed on the kitchen floor with a loud thud, unconscious as a result of one of Daddy's blows. She lay there for a few moments as if she were dead. I stood still, frozen in that moment, waiting for a small piece of evidence indicating she was still alive. She roused as Daddy bent down to help her up. He assisted her to the bedroom and made us kids go upstairs to bed. His loud, one-sided conversations with her could be heard throughout the house all night long. I listened for her voice. I only heard his. The next morning, Mama got us kids up, fed us breakfast, and sent us off to school. I watched her, wondering if she was really okay. Her face was bruised. She was quiet, and she didn't make eye contact. I thought about the incident throughout the day. I couldn't get the image of Mama lying lifeless on the floor out of my head. When the last bell rang, I was afraid to go home. I didn't tell anyone about the abuse that went on. None of us kids ever told anything. We were too afraid. Daddy was an extremely angry man with little self-control. When upset, he let his emotions loose, taking out his rage on those who couldn't fight back. Mama was the underdog, the victim that was going to lose every time. He appeared to be an insensitive husband while saying I love you. He fussed at her all the time. What kind of man gets married to beat a wife? Did he just fight her like that for no reason? I began to wonder what Mama did that made him constantly angry with her. Daddy's wrongs were evident. I was quick to blame him for things, but what about her? I was on the outside looking in, questioning in my heart why two people who seemed dissatisfied with each other stayed together as long as they did. I didn't know where to begin trying to understand Daddy, so I just let my sympathy encompass Mama. I was too concerned for her safety to find compassion for him. I held on to a hope that he did have some kind of love in his heart for someone. God created everyone with love. I waited for it to kick in someday. Daddy would fake niceness in the public eye. When he was with us, somewhere around other people, he would speak kindly to me. I loved that. He would call me son, talk to me about different products on the shelves at the grocery store, and make me laugh. I never got that type of favorable attention from him, so I gobbled it up like a hungry dog. Before I learned it was a front only for outsiders, I had attempted to carry on our friendly demeanor at home. It was business as usual with him, yelling and pushing me around when people weren't looking. I remembered another instance when Daddy took me for a ride, just him and I. Initially, I was excited just to be going somewhere with my daddy since I never got that father-son time with him. He drove me to an old, shabby, abandoned house and told me to get out of the car. I suddenly feared him hurting me without anyone knowing. He had me follow him inside where he began explaining to me that I wasn't his son. He told me that we were standing in the house where Mama often met her lover. This other man, he said convincingly, was really my father. He even went as far as showing me a man's name etched in the wall and what he insisted was Mama's handwriting. I wasn't aware of Mama cheating on Daddy. She was either home or at church, so I wasn't sure when she would have made the time. I knew Daddy wasn't faithful in the marriage, though. Everyone knew that. His actions stood out like snow in the summertime because he was always a white man in a hood full of blacks. He had 2 kids that we knew of outside of his marriage to Mama, Deathra and Alice, with a neighbor lady in Detroit. When Mama found out, she accepted the girls. We'd play together and Mama would look out for them with clothes from garage sales. She reasoned it wasn't the kids' fault what had happened. When Daddy became a truck driver, he'd be away from home for long periods of time. That was when numerous adulterous affairs came to light, all with black women. Mama just seemed too motherly to me to be a cheater. Still, I believed Daddy when he told me I wasn't his son. If he wasn't my father, that would explain his meanness towards me. If he was lying, I took it to be the way he really felt about me. That in his heart, he really didn't perceive me as his child. It troubled me to know that the family I cherished wasn't really mine. Neither Daddy nor Mama appeared to be happy. Mama relied heavily on church as her bandage. She grinned and bore a lot. Church, as I recall, didn't keep me from getting hurt or her either. Still, she was always there trying to ease her pain and find hope. Daddy balled up his fist to beat the hope out of her. I had heard the preacher say that love was kind and that it never failed. I was confused. That couldn't have been the same love that held my parents together. It would seem that Daddy and Mama shared a physical bond that fell short of the complete system of love that was set up to protect all involved. Their initial physical attachment seemed to remain on the physical plane, as evidenced by the discord in our home. They never got to the root of their dysfunction, and so we all lost out. Mama stayed with Daddy despite things that would have made any other woman walk away. He was always hitting her and cheating on her. Still, she remained his wife for many years. Whether it was the financial security for her and us kids, her dedication to church rules that said no divorce, or if it was simply because she loved him, she put up with Daddy's issues. She admitted once she saw the messy adult lives her children had attained that perhaps she had stayed with him too long. I wondered what things would have been like had she obeyed her father and the church and not been so quick to date or venture off to the skating rink. Daddy wasn't a man of conviction, so his actions were to be expected of an unsaved man. Mama was the one with the covenant agreement with God himself and had reneged, professing faith with her mouth, but standing condemned when it came to submission. The rebellion in both of their hearts settled in as my way of thinking. As I got older, Mama would tell me I was just like Bob, that being the shortened name she called my daddy. Well, I was just like her too. Daddy's anger, fear, and insecurity will come to control my interactions with others. I would later develop his reasoning when it came to looking for a pretty woman that may not have been good for me. I would also find myself running into Mama's roadblock when it came to relying on religion without a serious commitment to obedience. Like her, I didn't want to stay within God's guidelines, and I would pay sin's high price just like she did. Divorce was a formal statement indicating things weren't right between my parents. I was 15 when they finally split up for good after a couple of separations. I had mixed feelings about it. I was old enough to understand. Still, it hurt me to see them dissolve their commitment to each other. I felt the worst was over and Daddy didn't really have to leave. He hadn't taught me much about the lines of survival, and he certainly hadn't allowed me an opportunity to know him. I was brokenhearted. When he left, it seemed he took the part of me that could be whole and left me only with the portion that would never amount to anything. I was a very angry young man. My mind reasoned that Daddy and Mama hadn't earned my respect, so I wouldn't give them any. I spoke a lot of bad things about each of them. I had to admit I was totally guilty of dishonoring my parents because I didn't believe either of them had ever loved me. I owed my parents honor no matter what went down in the past, but I felt I had a right to despise them. For a long time, I refused to forgive. The days of condemnation towards them did come to an end late in adulthood, but only after a great deal of suffering. God allowed my lot in life for a reason only He knew. I had to learn and grow to trust Him to heal me of it all. Fear, the fiercest enemy of my soul, nearly consumed me in the process of growing up. My foundation of truth, love, and honesty was hit with such harsh blows that proper thinking was forced out of balance. My parents were supposed to guide me and nurture my talent. They were supposed to speak life into me. I didn't know then that I was born to complete a spiritual assignment in this physical world. I was commissioned to do something special through music and my testimony. It was a mission the enemy would try to destroy through my relationship with my parents. Because of an unstable foundation of faith and a chaotic home front, the musical talent I would develop would go astray. When that went left, my mind, body, and soul followed. It was Satan's intent to keep me from telling the world about true love by simply influencing me to sing a perverse song. When I find myself thinking about Daddy and Mama now, I pray and give thanks for them. I can confidently say today that I have forgiven them. It was a blessing for me to survive a physical war that was actually spiritual in nature. The pages following are a summary of my life as I grew up in the DeBarge family and my life thereafter. I'm hopeful that my story of faith and forgiveness will help you.